There's a lot to be upset about, and especially if you're fans, and if you try to take, put your finger on the pulse of fans, you go on social media, they were not happy about this whatsoever. To your point, I think fans stick with you, provided you're winning or getting the results. And I think they're losing a lot of fans right now who at least even jumped on board during that incredible World Cup qualifying run. The diehards are always going to be there, right? But we're trying to grow this. We're trying to expand this. And a lot of what you say all hits home. But I do want to throw in a little bit of glass half full here. So, Ollie, when you look at these two games against Jamaica, are there silver linings as we move into the new year?
Well, like I said, I think they showed at times how good they can be. The first half was outstanding. Again, I'll repeat that because I think it's two sides of the same coin at times, that some of their strengths become their biggest weaknesses and vice versa. But the first half was really excellent. And I've had questions about, does Kone and Eustáquio work as a central midfield pairing? Maybe some of that flared back up in the second half. But in the first half, those two were brilliant. Kone is a Rolls Royce of a midfielder. He's a tremendous player. Davies was a lot better, really, really dangerous. I think the partnership between Larin and David continues to develop. I love the way that Larea combined with Davies and Johnston combined with Buchanan. Thought some of the off the ball running that maybe you don't notice that helps open up space for other players was really, really good. So there were certainly things in that first half that you can look at that can be helpful in the long term and provide something of a picture, I think, in the long term of how this Canada team might play and what they look like at their best. But there's still just really glaring weaknesses at the same time. And it's when the game turns, it's when they have to defend a little bit. They're very poor at defending their own box. I think Cornelius looked very uncomfortable on his right sides. And there is, for me, a lack of leadership. And when I talk about, the arrogance a little bit and the complacency, I think really that's driven by, or you avoid that by having two or three players who have their heads screwed on, who lead this team and who understand those moments, who sense when those moments are coming. The rest of the players kind of come along for the rides with whoever those leaders are. And I thought that leadership was badly lacking. And people have been trying to drop Steven Vittoria from this team for about 2 years. I think he's still their best defender, but beyond that, he's an A+ person and leader, and he gets that group defensively together in a way that no one else does. And so until we have someone else who can step up into that role and replace him, he's got to continue to play. And that's the complication of, it's easy to say, well, just play more young players, turn it over to the next generation. But who is it? Because you saw his absence last night.
I don't think you understand glass half full. I felt like it was still very empty there. But
hold on. I'll this team has great players and really good young players. Like, they're exciting to watch. I think they play some wonderful football. They just need an adult in the room, someone that can bring them together and make sure that the focus is on the football on the field and that the intricacies of the game are dealt with. That's it. Like, I'm still really, really encouraged about where this program's going and the potential of this group. That's why I call last night a wake-up call more so than anything else, Andy.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, in that first half, I think, Jordan, we still really liked Jonathan David and Kyle Larin. You have to give credit to Andre Blake. This guy was coming up with grade A saves in the first half. You're right. Heading into the halftime, this could have been 3-0, could have been 4-0. It's not like the Canadians weren't generating. It feels like that second half just cast this enormous cloud over everything. But when you look at, the two halves or the game in total in Jamaica, the first half in Toronto, Jordan, what is it that you still do like about this team?
I think, Ollie said it as well. I think we saw the highlights and the lowlights all in one match yesterday. The highlights is how they break and go forward, and players that you just don't have an answer for. The Jonathan Davids, he can come in the way he recognizes space, and he can come into the pocket and get the ball 9 times out of 10 and use it. Davies, when he's running forward, there's not a better player in the world like him when he has space and time to pick up passes. Larin, handful in the box. Buchanan, it just seems to get better and better every time he touches the pitch. Eustáquio, like we broke it down. There are so many names and players that you like and you're attracted to and that play phenomenal football. But it's just getting that chemistry right within that team. I think that's the next little bit. And now there's expectations. One, which these players wanted. But now you got to show up every time. You can't go and fumble the bag like they did last night. I don't think all is lost. Obviously, all of us here, we're all fans and we're rooting for them, but we have to address issues. And one of the big issues is not having leadership in moments where you need it. I think last night was a glaring issue. There's no one really seeing the danger and anticipating it and saying, look, this is how we're going to do it. And for me, it's not a coach on the sideline. They put out their team. They say how they want to do things, but you still have to manage what happens on the pitch. And you need players. And I hate to say this because I know, like, obviously he's retired. Tiba Hutchinson last night would have seen some problems and been like, look, this is how we're going to play a little bit, and getting just more experienced players doing their bit. So there's a lot to like, but yeah, there's also glaring issues that need to be addressed.
And if the door was open even just a little bit for Mauro Biello to remain as the manager, I wonder if that door has now just shut. To your point, maybe you need a fresh voice, fresh face, someone who's maybe not connected either to the players who will make those bold decisions.
It needs to happen today, Andy. Honestly, it's not about an interim manager resigning or stepping away. It's a Canadian Soccer Association saying, thank you for these 2 or 3 games tomorrow. And by the time we play in March, we have a new permanent manager in place.
Let's talk about March.
This is what happens. Like in football, in mature associations, when you fail, there's consequences. There's high stakes here. They didn't deliver. You're gone. This is the way that sport works.
So let's talk about March 23rd. They will be facing Trinidad and Tobago. So their chances of making it into the Final Four of Nations League, that's done. It's gone. Their real chance of winning a trophy in 2024, done. But they do have a chance. March 23rd against Trinidad and Tobago. It's a one-off game. If they win that, Ollie, they do get into Copa America. Are you feeling confident?
Yeah, of course they should win that game, with all due respect to Trinidad and Tobago. Canada's a superior team. Mexico going through. These matchups will depend on the rankings at the end of November, but I don't think they can move, so it will be Trinidad and Tobago. Canada will be the top seed of those 4 teams. And so it should be a very winnable match. Again, it's not just about Copa America here for me. That's the big one, and that's massive, obviously, and they need to seal that job, but not playing in Nations League finals in March is a big blow. I think it could also have consequences for the next Nations League, where maybe we're going to, if it's done based on the previous Nations League, we're going to be playing in the group stage of the next one rather than getting the bye to the quarterfinals, which wipes out 2 windows where we could be playing teams from outside the region. So there's consequences beyond just the Copa America, but I agree with Wheels. We need to get moving here in terms of the true leadership of this federation. They need to find 2 or 3 people as soon as they can, whether it's general secretary, head coach, some kind of sporting director coming in. I don't know. I don't really care what the titles are, but we need a proper plan here for the way we're taking this program forwards, not just into next year with Copa America, not just into 2026, but beyond that as well. And right now we just feel like we're coasting from one window to the next with no real grip on things. And that has to change, and it has to change as a matter of urgency. And it feels like right now we're just a bit too content to kind of take our time and continue, in the vein we are, which has been, frankly, a totally wasted 2023.
I don't know. Trinidad and Tobago still scare me. This is the team. Now, mind you, maybe they just have the USA's number, but USA, they're big in CONCACAF. They're the ones who prevented USA from qualifying, right, for the 2018 World Cup. Right now, they gave the USA a hard time.
Don't do what Serginho Dest did.
The blueprint is there how to beat Canada. Play in a low block. Don't get beat in transition. Force Canada to break you down. Trinidad and Tobago showed they have a good coach. They're well managed and they're resilient. They work their you-know-whats off. Very well organized. Not going to be easy.